Comey Media, Incorporated.
Welcome, one and all. It's that time again. It's time for Total Football Talk Extra, as we are here to discuss the Argonauts clinching second in the East Division with win over the Red Blacks. I'm your host, Drew Willingham, and we are back to discuss the Week 20 recap, the preview of the final regular season week in the CFL for Week 21. And I can only do that now for the 8th consecutive week on this special program with this man right here. Welcome back, Mr. Ryan McCarthy.
The X, get the X.
Yeah. Total Football Talk Extra, here to discuss the extras within the game of professional football. And this week, we've been covering for 8 consecutive weeks here on this program that we've developed. Cole and I, Total Football Talk, just had episode 60 this past Monday.
Nice.
A lot of episodes we've been wrapping up in a little over a year, and to be able to extend that with this project, and then maybe after the CFL season, find other creative ways to discuss extra things within the game of other, professional football or the NFL. We'll have to see. But here and now, we have to discuss Week 20 in our review, and we have to do that here within the opening drive.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989. On two. Ready?
And here at the opening drive, we review Week 20 within the CFL. And there were 3 teams that we had that were on bye, as it was the final 3-game week of the season. And, here for Week 20, we had the Edmonton Elks, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and the Saskatchewan Rough Riders on bye this week. Yes, on by this week, they were all 3 of those teams. Friday the 18th at 7, we had the Calgary Stampeders. Oh, man. Almost over with this one, with this team right here.
I don't know who's happier, us or Stampeders fans.
Both. Well, yeah, it's just been a wild ride for them this year, and not such a good way against the Hamilton Tiger Kitties in the lopsided game that was, between that and the other 2 games on Saturday. It was what it was for Week 20. And we're going to start breaking it down with the Friday game that we have right here. And we have to do that within the Friday edition games. And within those editions of Friday games, this one we only had 1 Friday night game. In comparison to this week, we have 2 for the 4-game week. But with this, for Week 20, the Calgary Stampeders traveled to Hamilton to take on the Tiger Kitties. Last Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern time, 42-20 was the routing of this score, Ryan. Absolutely terrible to watch when you look at this. I mean, Bo Levi Mitchell, if you are a fan of the Tiger Kitties and of this man for what he's done for the CFL over this time, 450 passing yards in this game. Old Man River gets it done. 5 touchdowns on the day with an interception as well, but does great work with him moving the chains on those 3 down drives to get this thing going into where they can win 42-20. When you add Greg Bell's performance of 15 carries for 139 yards, along with 3 receptions for 23 yards, Stephen Dunbar's 7 receptions for 146 yards and 2 touchdowns was a big highlight, along with Tim White's 5 receptions for 128 yards and 2 touchdowns as well. When you look at the numbers between his receivers and himself, Bo Levi Mitchell, they were definitely clicking on all cylinders in this game. The Tiger Cats defense only had 1 interception that was really a highlight of, with that being coming from Jonathan Moxey. But the defense did a really good job at containing the Stampeders offense. When you look at also the kicker, Mark Lehio, kicking 3 field goals on the day out of 3 attempts with a long of 35 yards, did enough to get things moving in the right direction to put up the points for the Tiger Kitties. Matthew Schultz, 124 passing yards and an interception, along with 7 carries for 43 yards and a rushing touchdown. It wasn't quite enough to get it done for the Stampeders, but a little bit better than what he did the week prior, even though he did throw an interception. Look at the fact on the ground, though, he had a rushing touchdown. That's the one positive from it, but he definitely didn't throw any touchdowns, so definitely trended downward. Dedrick Mills, the one highlight for this team throughout this year for the Stampeders, 13 carries for 76 yards, along with Reggie Beggleton's 4 receptions for 39 yards. Rene Paredes, field goal kicker, puts up 2 kicks, completing 2 of those, and gets 45 yards for his long on the day. When you look at what this team did in the Tiger Kitties, routing the Stampeders, what are your overall thoughts on what we saw in this game there, Ryan?
Thank God Calgary's season's almost over.
Yes! Yes!
Because every team has been beating on this dead horse, literally and figuratively speaking, for the last 2 months, and we've had to talk about him on ever since I came back to Total Football Talk Extra. We've had to talk about this team, and mercifully, their season's almost over. And I'm watching this game. I was watching this game after a little bit after our wrap up on last Friday. Game was kicking off just as we were wrapping up. Funny enough, and Hamilton just kept scoring. It kept scoring. They touchdown, another touchdown, then another touchdown. It's 21-0 at the end of the first quarter. And I was like, where was this enthusiasm a couple weeks ago? But Bo Levi Mitchell, right now, there's this big debate in the CFL amongst fans right now. Here on different podcasts and different shows I watch or listen to. It's about Bo Levi Mitchell. Bo Levi Mitchell's playing for a team that's going to miss the playoffs. They're sitting at 7-10 after this win. But he's the league leader in passing yards. He had 450 passing yards this week. Basically didn't come out of the game at all. He was in the game for the entire game. I don't know if it was a matter of just getting his reps in and trying to make his case for the league most outstanding it's most outstanding player in Canada, not most valuable player. Sorry, a little bit distinction here. But he's making the case. Even on a 7-10 team that's going to miss the playoffs, he's making the case for it. Now, on the flip side, there's the conversation of a defensive player might win the most outstanding player. We'll talk about them. We'll talk about him in another segment or maybe another show. Actually, we'll talk about towards the end, in the 2-minute drill. Mr. Roland Milligan, who leads the league in interceptions. He's in consideration. He's in the talks for the most outstanding player. So it kind of harkened me back to 1998. Got to go back in the memory banks a little bit. Remember the Heisman race from 1998? It was Peyton Manning, and it was Charles Woodson. Who was going to win the Heisman that year? And this is the same type of conversation. History could be made this year if Roland Milligan earns the Western nomination for most outstanding player. Going up against Bo Levi Mitchell, one of these two guys are going to win most outstanding player, and one's going to be a defensive player. Hasn't happened in a couple generations. I think the 1950s was the last time a defensive player won MOP, and that's because he played 2 positions. and you got a quarterback from a losing team that is going to be winning. That could be winning the award. So Bo Levi Mitchell making his case for MOP, and I think he could possibly do it. There's not much to say because this was a family game, meaning mostly friends of players and family of players are watching this game. But it at least sent Hamilton Tiger Cats home on a high note, because at the start of the season, this wasn't going to be. This is kind of a lost season. Defense was a wreck. Bo Levi got benched, not because of a performance, but because of the coaching. Scott Milanovich wanted to see what Powell could do. Couldn't do a whole lot. Then Bo Levi Mitchell comes in and he's having a season he's having. So not much to say about this game other than just you kind of hope, if you're a Hamilton fan, that Bo Levi will be back next year. And the way that defense has been playing over the last 2 months has been nothing short of a miracle, considering where they were at the beginning of the season. And then you have Chris Jones coming in after being fired from Edmonton, fixing the defense, making them good again, making them shine. So if you're a Hamilton Tiger Cats fan, you're going home feeling okay. If we can put this team together next year, if we run it back next year, maybe add a few pieces here and there, this team could go on a playoff run. And especially if Bo Levi Mitchell decides to come back. I think he's got one more year in his contract, if I'm not mistaken. That's what they said in the 2 and Out CFL podcast last week. So, yep, let's see if they can run it back. As far as Calgary goes, it's rebuild city. You gotta get yourselves a quarterback. Whoever's playing right now between Matt Schultz, Logan Bonner, and Jake Mayer, they're not doing it. So you gotta find yourself a quarterback. You got some decisions to make. You got one more game coming up tomorrow night. I could actually decide the outcome of the West Division, depending on how Winnipeg does in the early of the afternoon. So, yeah, this was I kind of knew this was going to happen, especially after the first quarter. It's 21-0 at the end of the first quarter. I'm thinking to myself, this is going to be a long game if you're a Calgary Stampeders fan, and it's going to be happy times if you're a Hamilton Tiger Cats fan. And I was right.
Yeah, you were. I mean, it's been tough to watch when you look at the fact that Bo Levi Mitchell led the Calgary Stampeders to 2 Grey Cups.
Yep.
And, you're facing your old team. It's good for him. You get to, one up your old team and demolish them 42-20, as we'll pull that graphic back up. This was definitely a routing in this past week. He comes in, he showed why he led them to those 2 Grey Cups.
Yeah.
We've seen flashes of that in those 7 wins that we've seen from this team this year. At least, with them doing this and getting to 7 wins with the way this season started for them, very similar to like the Winnipeg Blue Bombers as well. Ending on a high note is definitely big here for this team. And if you, like you were talking about the fact that you've got them under another year contract, you make some moves during this off season, throughout the winter into the spring, you may have something cooking, next year, if he can still put up 400 plus yards, because this isn't the first time we've seen him do that this year.
No.
Put up 400 plus yards, 450. I mean, you can put up a good case, so you get a couple more weapons, a little bit better protection in certain areas and defense. At the same time, they could put up even more numbers.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a good 2-headed rushing attack with Greg Bell and Steven Dunbar. You can interchange those guys. They can catch out of the backfield. They can get the hard yards if they need to. I mean, they both ran for over 100 yards. Dunbar had 146. Greg Bell had 139. They had almost 600 yards total offense in this game. They had 583 total yards, 450 in the air, 156 on the ground. So you got 2 guys who can do the stuff. I'm sorry, that was Stephen Dunbar reception. Sorry. But you got Greg Bell and James Butler. I don't know. I think Butler's either Bell or Butler are free agents this year. You got to keep one of those guys, if not both of them, just to get the run it back. Run it back. You got a good team. It unfortunately got up to a bad start, but you've got a decent team. You can keep the core together. Have Bo Levi Mitchell in the backfield the next year. This team could be back in the playoffs in no time.
It's just when it comes to the Calgary Stampeders, And when it comes to what we've had to watch this entire year, it has been absolutely your old MVP, the man who led you to the 2 Grey Cups. You go to his town now, the one that he has recreated into his own, Hamilton, and you get served the big fare. The Tiger Kitties, there is hope for their future. There is hope for their future.
Yep.
But at the same time, the Calgary Stampeders, from where they were 6 years ago when they last won their Grey Cup to now, they really need to
Stop it. Get some help.
because this is definitely not the type of rebuild that anybody wants to see. It is absolutely terrible.
What?
It is mother-fathering terrible.
What?
The worst mother-fathering thing that we have seen as far as you're at the top of the cliff and now you're at the bottom when it comes to the CFL.
What?
In my opinion.
Surprise, motherfucker.
That I actually have one in this matter. What are your thoughts, Ryan McCarthy?
Nothing more can be said. And as I stated before, they've got some decisions to make in the offseason. Dave Dickinson is playing the dual role of GM and head coach. He's been getting snippy with the media lately. There's stories of fighting in the locker, not fighting in the locker room, but just bickering in the locker room, pointing fingers. The offense didn't really show up in this game. Defense didn't do their job. They got some decisions to make. And I just happen to think that Dickinson's going to give up one of those roles this year at the end of the offseason. He's going to give up his head coaching role and hand over the reins to somebody else, whether it be internally or they'll find another coach, or he'll give up his GM role and they'll find somebody else. Somebody mentioned Danny McManus, who is the assistant GM in Winnipeg, being a possible contender, being a possible candidate for the GM job. But let's wait. That's all speculation. Let's wait and see what happens. So you got to figure quarterback is going to be something they're going to look for in the offseason. Running back, they're okay. Dedrick Mills, very good, solid running back. He's filled in where after Kadeem Carey left and went to Toronto. He's filled in nicely. It's just gonna be. They gotta figure out what the defense is gonna do because they have the secondary is a mess. As we could see with the 450 passing yards they allowed on Friday, but they got some things to think about. You got some guys who are coming out of free agency at the end of the season. One of the guys is mentioned as a possible target of acquisition for a quarterback is Vernon Adams Jr. because of what happened with Nathan Ork, and we'll touch on that in a few minutes because we'll talk about that game. But it's going to be interesting It's going to be a very interesting offseason, something to see in Calgary. There's going to be some changes for sure. Absolutely. And they have to be done. And they have to be done after this disaster of a season.
Oh yeah. Because I mean, with the way it started, and I was about to jump into it. We gotta. That's me. All right. Now, when it comes to this game right here, Stampeders, Hamilton Tiger Cats, it was so bad watching both of them this year for the majority. But I'm happy for Bo Levi Mitchell and the Hamilton Tiger Cats to be able to end it on a high note. We'll be able to predict one more game for them here in a little bit as we have week 21 coming up, because, but the Calgary Stampeders, this is the final countdown.
Finally.
To where next week we'll be reviewing it. But we'll be looking forward to the playoffs because we'll have 3 weeks of playoffs left to cover after this week. So,
and none of those games will involve the Calgary Dead Horsies.
No, they absolutely will not. Because all this finger pointing, they can do it all they want to, but the other side just can't.
You can't handle the truth.
So, with that being said, we're going to take this into the Saturday games. So this past Saturday, there were 2 games. There was one at 3 and there was one at 7. We have a game of the week that we have to pick within this as well. So let's take a look at the 7 o'clock game before we get to the game of the week, because this was an absolute beatdown. You want to talk about something that was from the last game happening, that actually happened in this one royally. It was absolutely bowling shoe ugly. Ryan McCarthy, looking at how this game was 27-3, and looking at how things were for the Alouettes. I mean, I know they've secured a playoff spot, but this is like the epitome of not even trying. You might as well have just forfeited, is what it looks like in this game. Because the BC Lions defense is not that good into what the numbers are for, and we're about to break it down. But Vernon Adams Jr. for the Lions, this is what you and I have been waiting to see for quite some time, because we saw a great start to the year for this team. I was liking it. Besides what we had with the Saskatchewan Roughriders, I was liking the BC Lions. They were like my second team. I mean, you got your favorites, and then you got your teams that you like to watch as well. Yeah. So that's the way I've always viewed sports. Of course, you never pick you have a favorite, and then you want to watch other teams that are the rivals. But looking at it for what it is, here and now, for this team, the BC Lions, they were enjoyable to watch when Vernon Adams Jr. was the quarterback starting this year out. I mean, we were talking about MVP candidate for several weeks on Total Football Talk when we were covering CFL, and then it was like the whole tide had shifted by the time we had TFT Xtra created. So, looking at that and looking what Vernon Adams Jr. was able to do in his comeback game to the Lions, because we didn't know if he was going to go somewhere else or if he was going to be with the Lions when this year ended, with discussions we had several weeks ago. And now where we're at with the end of October, he finally gets a chance to play again on Saturday, October 19th. Puts up 385 passing yards on the day, hurls 2 touchdowns in the air, but does throw 2 interceptions. But hey, you could look at those interceptions and say that's rust, right here before the playoffs are here. And we'll get into that here in a little bit, because they have secured a spot in the playoffs. And looking at that for what it is, this whole switching up quarterbacks thing came pretty late in the year, and we'll get into that here in a second. But he also puts up 5 carries on the day for 39 yards on the ground, has a rushing touchdown, along with, I'm probably going to butcher this name because it's new, but Jeshru Antwi puts up 6 carries for 71 yards. Stanley Berryhill III, a man who should be selling you car insurance, puts up 3 receptions for 81 yards on the day and a receiving touchdown. Keon Hatcher, 8 receptions for 117 yards, along with Justin McInnes is 7 receptions for 106 yards. Helps out Vernon Adams Jr. set up the Tide for how they were going to win this game. Looking at the defense, they put up 2 sacks on the day, and Sean White, the field goal kicker, puts up 2 of 2 for field goals, with a long of 33 yards. Looking at the Montreal Alouettes, though, this is where I get to the point of they just didn't even try, and they might as well have forfeited, because you had both of your quarterbacks out there putting up the same amount of passing yards. And when I say it like that, you're like, what's the big deal? The big deal is they both put up 67 passing yards on the day. They had no touchdowns. They were so bad they didn't even throw an interception. And I never thought I would ever say that. But they were so bad they couldn't even throw an interception. So bad they couldn't even throw a touchdown. So bad they couldn't do anything, because they put up 67 yards on the day. Looking at that for what it is, that's 134 yards collectively. That's terrible. Both of them put up some rushing stats. Davis Alexander put up 4 carries for 28 yards, and Cody Fajardo put up 2 carries for 16 yards as well. Stevie Scott, the running back, was probably, you would say, the highlight of the day for the team. 7 carries, 33 yards, and 3 receptions for 20 yards as well. Alouettes defense, though, did outdo the Lions defense when it comes to turnovers they secured. Wes Sutton and Tyrese Beverett secured 2 interceptions apiece. Jose Maltos, the field goal kicker, was 101 on field goals for the day, and that field goal was only 14 yards long. Looking at this for what it was, is this a case of the Alouettes not showing up in this game, Ryan, or is this a case of Vernon Adams Jr. came back and is ready to light the league on fire for a playoff run?
I think it could be a little. You could interpret it as a little bit of each. I'm going back to the game week before, and Montreal had 4 days to prepare for this game. It's not an excuse; it's just a fact because they played on Monday on Canadian Thanksgiving or Columbus Day, and to just whatever you want to call it in America. They played flat in that game too offensively. Defensively, they were pretty stout. And in this game, it picked off Vernon Adams twice. They scored a sack on him, but otherwise they couldn't really contain him. I think Vernon Adams was just getting a lot of frustration. A lot of his frustrations out on the Alouettes because he hadn't played and hadn't started a game in quite a while. Part of it was injuries. Part of it was Nathan Rourke being there. And I think Rick Campbell just wanted to get, Rick Campbell just wanted to get Rourke used to the CFL again, used to Canadian style football again. But Vernon Adams is a guy who just throughout the whole thing, I think it would just kept it. He just was being himself, was being a veteran guy, was being mature, was getting the guys hyped up, was getting the hype every week. He wasn't in the lineup, wasn't starting. He was still hyping the guys up, but this time around, just you could tell that he wanted to just play his best in this game. And he did. I mean, 385 passing yards on a very good Montreal Alouettes defense, especially with the ball hawks that they have in their secondary. It's nothing to shake, nothing to really, shake your head at, because you got to wonder, if this is going to be the offense going forward, this has to be the offense going forward for the BC Lions. And this should have been the offense for the last 2 months. This is only their 4th win in the last 3 months. It's awful. And especially in a year where you're hosting the Grey Cup. And you've been lost in the woods. Your offense has been lost in the woods in the Canadian wilderness of the Cascades for the last 3 months. And and now when the playoff seedings were pretty much decided the week before, you're finally saying, "Oh, we figured it out." Okay, well, let's see you prove it next week against whoever you play, whether it be Winnipeg or Saskatchewan in the West semifinal. On the flip side of the ball, again, Montreal's been flat offensively the last couple of weeks. Cody Fajardo only played the first half. Davis Alexander played the second half, and they just couldn't get things going on the offensive side of the ball. I think part of it was not having Mac in the backfield as a wide receiver option. He's been hurt the last couple of games, but he'll be back this week for the game against Winnipeg. And they're no rushing. No, I've been saying this. I've been harking on this for ever since I came back. They have no running attack, and and you saw it this game. They had no running attack. If you look at the stats on the player stats on the player side of the ball, they had four different guys carrying the ball between Stevie Scott, David Alexander, Sean Thomas Erlington, who should be the law firm, and Cody Fajardo. And they gave them a respectable amount of yards, but they just couldn't. They don't do enough running, and you kind of know what's going to be expected from this offense. It's starting to become predictable. So opposing defenses will see what they're going to be literally throwing at them. It's going to be. It's going to be on the arm of Cody Fajardo, or it's going to be on the arm of Davis Alexander. So in order for Montreal to and I think Winnipeg might be a get right game before the playoffs begin. They have a first round bye. They're going to host the East Final. But if their offense doesn't really start to pick up the pace soon, I think they could be very well out of contention for a Grey Cup. Whoever plays them in the East Final could take them by surprise and beat them in Wilson Stadium. And it's sad because they've done a great job this year. They're 12-4. They're 12-4-1 entering this week. And you want to have some sort of positivity going into the playoffs, whether you're hosting a playoff game, you're whether you got a bye going into the final or you're going into the playoff round, or you're playing in the semifinal, you want to have some positive. You want to have some positive momentum, and it just kind of seems like their offense has been sleepwalking for the last month or so. Ever since they clinched the division, they clinched home field. It's just kind of the defense is holding their part. They've been holding their end of the bargain, but their offense is just kind of sleepwalking, and it's not great coming into the playoffs.
Yeah, it's definitely not great going into the playoffs when you look at how they've treated things management-wise within this team. Looking at that quarterback position, and we were riding high on Vernon Adams Jr. starting the year. I was really liking what I was seeing. I was claiming, you were claiming, Cole, same thing. Well, all three of us claiming that he was MVP candidate for the league at that point already. Looking at it for what it is, but is it like Bo Levi Mitchell's situation where they have another year on his deal? Like, this is his third season with the team.
I believe they have one more year left, and here's the trick. Vernon Adams' contract is fully guaranteed. So if they decide to trade him, whoever's going to pick him up, whether it be Calgary or Edmonton, they pick up his salary. So I don't know what the situation for Nathan Rourke's contract is. They're paying him a whole lot of money. I believe he's one of the highest paid players in the CFL. For the next 3, because they signed him for 3 seasons. So if you want to win, you're gonna make a decision at the end of the season. All right, this guy gives me the best chance to win, but this guy costs this much money. And actually, they both earn pretty high salary for quarterback for this league. So if Vernon Adams wins a Grey Cup as a starting quarterback for the BC Lions, they win in BC Place on November 17th. This is going to be a very difficult decision for the BC Lions going forward in the offseason. But that's the offseason. On the here and now, right now, I'm saying Vernon Adams is the starting quarterback going forward. Yeah,
because after this week, this is their bye week. This is their time that they can reset and they get a little extra practice time. Get a little bit of rest for some of those players that need it in this moment, because when you come back, you're in the first round, you're in the CFL division semifinals, and it's still not determined who we're going to see quite yet. Depends on how the Rough Riders do this weekend, if they're going to get the first round bye or if they're going to have to play the Lions in this game. But we will talk about that more here in a little bit, as we have to now look at what we have as far as the game of the week. But between the game of the week, between the first 2 games, it's definitely some blowouts. It was definitely lopsided between the Friday game and the Saturday game that we just covered. Before that, we stay within Saturday, but we have the game of the week now. With the game of the week, we have to take a look at the Ottawa Redblacks traveling to Toronto to take on the Argonauts. This past week, it was a Saturday 3 p.m. contest, the middle of 3 games for the weekend. And we look at the Ottawa Redblacks team, who have definitely had their roller coaster of a ride, as well as the Argonauts. Both of these teams definitely competing for a playoff run here, and they will see each other again after their Week 21 separation, as you have their Week 20 contest. Then they'll come back in the CFL Division semifinals. Looking at this preview right here, it was a pretty good game that we had in this contest. The Argonauts put up 38 points to the Redblacks 31 points. Now, Chad Kelly doing what he did in this game. 331 passing yards, along with 3 touchdowns he hurled in the air. Puts up 10 carries on the day for 25 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. Kadeem Carey, the running back for the year on this team, 14 carries for 55 yards and 1 rushing touchdown. Also has 2 carries for 14 yards on the day. Mekhi Polk, 3 receptions for 104 yards, along with a touchdown, has been the spark for the receiving core this year. Dejan Brissett, somebody we really haven't talked about this season, puts up 5 receptions for 67 yards, but puts up 2 receiving touchdowns in those 5 receptions to help the Argonauts to a 38-31 victory. Argonauts defense also contributes 3 sacks on the day with an interception by Tavares McFadden. And our boy, the kicker for that team, our boy Liram, puts up some points on the day. He put up one of field goals, and that going for 36 yards. Got on the board, but with the extra points within the touchdowns, it all adds up to where he contributed 8 points on the day. Great job, Liram. Not even going to mess up your last name today because you deserve your spotlight. Liram deserves the spotlight. He contributed. He didn't have to contribute too much or too little by not even getting on the board. And he didn't miss anything because he made that field goal. Great job, Liram. I'm proud of you. And so is Ryan McCarthy over here. Now back to the game. Back to this game right here for it being the game of the week. There was action on both sides of the ball. Drew Brown put up 400 passing yards and 4 touchdowns on the day, along with an interception. He did only put up a carry for 9 yards, but hey, it's not negative. It's still 9 yards for that 1 carry. It's pretty good. The negative part of this team, that they're lucky they still got 31 points on the day, is because they had no running game whatsoever. Ryan McCarthy, it was absolutely terrible. When you look at the numbers they put up, I'm surprised they got 31 yards because their running back, Kalen Lamborn, had 4 carries for 11 yards on the day. He had more action as a receiver. He hurled in 4 catches for 42 yards, but 4 carries for 11 yards is absolutely dumpster Pelican worthy. Justin Hardy, though, the highlight of this team receiving-wise for this year, puts up 7 receptions for 102 yards on the day and 1 receiving touchdown. And another receiver in the game also has 2 touchdowns, trying to outduel the receiver on the other side of the ball. This receiver being Braylon Addison, putting up 8 receptions for 74 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. Khalil Pimpleton got in the action and setting the tone, didn't get any touchdowns, but he had 7 receptions for 114 yards on the day. All this action by the receivers helped out Drew Brown, that kept this team in the line of action through and through from start to finish. The Red Blacks defense was only able to muster up a sack, and the lack of productivity on that side was what contributed to them getting 38 points for the Argonauts. Looking at this for what it was, for being the game of the week for the CFL, what are your thoughts overall when looking between these two teams and what we saw as a preview to the first round of the playoffs?
We almost had a tortoise in the hare game, and I'll tell you why. Because Toronto got off to such a hot start. I mean, this was a kind of a flip to the game they had last month when Ottawa got off to like a 31-3 lead in the first half and only went in by, I think it was 13. If I remember correctly, I'm trying to remember my memory banks. This was the same thing. This was almost exactly the same thing. And Toronto was up 28-6 at halftime. And then they just kind of put themselves on cruise control for the rest of the game. Except, here comes the fourth quarter. And all of a sudden, you see Ottawa try to start to play. They start to play catch up. They couldn't convert on 2. In the third quarter, they couldn't convert on 2 drives where they got inside Toronto's 10. That was the biggest difference in this game. But they just didn't give up. And the only reason, because they had to play catch up so much, because their running attack was the running game was taken away. The running game, they had 28 total rushing yards on 8 carries. They only carried the ball 8 times because they couldn't get the running attack together. And that's why Drew Brown had the game that he did. Welcome back to Drew Brown, by the way. But it's a tale of 3 complete quarters for Toronto, and then all of a sudden not showing up for the final quarter. And also part of it, don't forget too, I watched the highlights. They had 2 onside kick conversions. Ottawa, but here's the thing too. Here's the thing. They only converted a touchdown on one of those onside kicks. I think the first onside kick they recovered was Drew Brown threw an interception. Got the ball back, scored a touchdown, did another onside kick, and then got a field goal out of it, I believe. So But yeah, it was just a tale of it was just almost one of those things where it's just like, wow, I can't believe it's 38-6 and 38-6 at the end of the third quarter. People are starting to celebrate, or they're starting to leave. And it's like, nope, nope, nope. Don't leave yet. No lead is safe in the CFL. We've seen it time and time again. Very much akin to the Arena Football League. No lead is safe. And it was same kind of thing in this game. Chad Kelly just doing Chad Kelly things. 331 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 on the ground. He's always going to have 1 on the ground because he's that kind of quarterback. But he's starting to develop chemistry especially with Mekhi Polk. We've seen that over the last month or couple months since he came back from his severe suspension. So you're starting to see Mekhi Polk kind of come out of his shell a little bit, be a contributor to this offense. Had 140 yards receiving. Defense doing their thing. 3 sacks and interception. Toronto, dare I say, look, we saw it last year with Montreal. They went on their winning streak all the way to the Grey Cup. Had the home playoff win, beat Toronto in Toronto, went down to Hamilton, over to Hamilton, and they beat Winnipeg and won probably one of the biggest Grey Cup upsets in a very long time. You're starting to see the same kind of thing happen in Toronto. Toronto's getting very hot at the right time. Their defense is playing great. Their offense is putting things together between Chad Kelly's arm, what Deem Carey can do on the ground. And dare I say, this team, you can see this team in Vancouver on November 17th. What's interesting about Toronto's Grey Cup, though, the last 9 appearances they've been in the Grey Cup, they've won. I'll have to look at to see how many Grey Cups they've been to the last time they lost in a Grey Cup, but I believe it's the last 9 appearances in a row that Toronto has been in the Grey Cup. They've won the Grey Cup. But for Ottawa, I think on the flip side, Ottawa, they have to win. They have to win this week. This is a great chance for them to wrap up second place and have their whole first home playoff game in quite a long time. And they missed out on the opportunity because they couldn't get out of the gate, and they had to play catch up with the rest of the game. And with Drew Brown coming back, good for him. He's back in the lineup. He was sparking the offense, especially in the fourth quarter. But the defense let them down. They were down 38-6 by the end of the third quarter. Their defense was just, you could see the deflation on the defense. Only 1 sack on the day, and how many total yards given up? 436 yards total given up. And it was just not a great game for the defense, who has been rather solid this year. But over the last couple of weeks, after Darius Pickett's injury, this defense has been disappointing at best and underachieving at worst. So, this is a golden opportunity for Ottawa to get back on the horse, and they just couldn't do it. And Toronto now is hosting the playoff game next Saturday. So, good on Toronto. Congratulations to you, Ottawa. Got to pick it up.
And the fact that they won't have home field advantage, it could result in them taking another. Mickey Delaney is in the house.
Hey,
says hi, Drew. Hi, Ryan. Well, Mick, glad to have you here.
Officer Delaney, see ya.
Yeah, the comment cop is in the house. Somebody summon Ike so the two of them can duke it out in the comments. It's been a while since we had that shenanigery going on in the comments. He also says shared and liked. We greatly appreciate it there, Mick, having your support out here in these streams. But yes, we've now covered 3 games within this week of the CFL. Remember, the Elkimos, the Blue Bombers, and the Rough Riders had the bye this past week. And now looking at that for what it was, we now have to take it to our favorite parts of the week, where we get to pick somebody for the best and worst performance. And we start that off now with the Grand Champ.
All right, let's go. We got Trips, right? at 42, 989 on two. Ready? Quick!
Total Football Talk Extra.
Where my dogs at? One of them's right over here, Mr. McCoffey. The other one was in that transition right there. Kyle Johnson. Looking at this right here now when it comes to your choice for Dog of the Week in the CFL, Ryan McCarthy. Here's your choice for Dog of the Week.
My choice for Dog of the Week is a man who I've started to believe in, and that would be one Bo Levi Mitchell.
Nice.
Yes, the season is lost for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Made a valiant effort to try to make a playoff push. Unfortunately, came up short, but Bo Levi Mitchell, spry veteran, doesn't give up. He ain't giving up. And 450 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, excuse me. He's putting himself into contention for league's most outstanding player. Now, we could all argue, say, oh, it should go to somebody on a winning team, this and that. I'm like, listen, Andre Dawson won the National League MVP in 1987, even though the Cubs finished 18 games back of the St. Louis Cardinals that season. But if you saw the numbers he had, yeah, he definitely deserved MVP. And we're seeing it here with Bo Levi Mitchell. 450 yards in this game. He's thrown for over 5,000 yards this season alone. 5,000 yards. And he's got a chance to keep going on that total this week against an Ottawa team that is bleeding yards. They bled yards last week against Toronto. And I'm just gonna go with Bo Levi Mitchell. He's the dog of the week in my mind.
Nice pick there, Mr. McCoffey. We got, I don't know what button got clicked over here, but there we go. You're back
there
over
we go.
here. All right. So when it comes to this, and when it comes to our choices of dog of the week, they're very similar, with mine going to quarterback as well. We have to look at this man right here. We have to look at a quarterback who was on the shelf for a little bit. A quarterback who, right here and now, we had questions about. We were just talking about, was he going to play again for this particular team? Was he going to be traded? Was he going to go somewhere else? We don't know, because we were waiting. We were waiting to see. And this man being Vernon Adams Jr., with what he did for the Lions this past week. Coming in, hurling 385 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Yes, he did have 2 interceptions, but look at the amount of time he was on the shelf. He was a little rusty. He still led his team to a 27-3 victory over a team in the Alouettes, who have been dominating the league all year, who just decided to not show up in this past game for part of it. But the other part, Vernon Adams Jr. lit it up. And he also did with his legs, with 5 carries for 39 yards on the day and a touchdown on the ground, putting up 3 touchdowns collectively. Did better than what he did negatively. So I have to give it to this man. Vernon Adams Jr. is my choice for the dog of the week.
Solid pick. Pick. Return game. Throws for almost 400 yards against a very good defense. Good pick.
Thank you. Yeah, you got to look at the. It's been a while since we were able to pick him as a dog of the week. Yeah. He had several picks on the main show. Hadn't had a chance to do it on the new spinoff. So here we are, here and now. Vernon Adams Jr. and Bo Levi Mitchell. The two of you are our choices for the dog of the week. And now we get to review our snowflake of the week.
Total Football Talk Extra.
Yeah, it's that time for the snowflake of the week, as we choose our player who was the least productive in the league for the CFL in week 20. As we look here right now at the snowflake of the week, or if Brian McCarthy wants to go to the NFL and talk about anyone, I will give him that wild card today to hear his choice for a snowflake of the previous week for week 7 in the NFL or week 20 for the CFL. It is his choice for the snowflake of the week.
Well, I went on an extended rant on No Credentials Required on Tuesday about my New York Jets, so I'm gonna leave them out of the conversation. I've said enough about them. But my snowflake this week is gonna take a little bit of a curveball. Have a little bit of curveball here. Nothing to do with baseball. I'm gonna talk about when Mr. Head coach of the BC Lions, Rick Campbell. I know you won this week, but why did you wait this long to put Vernon Adams Jr. in the lineup? Why? I understand the need for putting in a homegrown Canadian boy in the lineup in Nathan Rourke. You want to give him the big contract. Got to make sure he's back in the fold after his failed time in, I would say failed time in the NFL, but you know, his extended time in the NFL, things didn't work out between the Jaguars, the Patriots, the Falcons, and the Giants. That didn't work out, so bring him on in. All right, cool. Got Nathan Rourke in the lineup. And then what happened? The offense just seemed to kind of get lost. They just got lost, and you saw weeks where this offense was just terrible with Nathan Rourke in the lineup. They'd win one game, they'd drop 3. Win another game, drop another 2. Win one game, drop another 2. Win their final game of the year. Only because Vernon Adams Jr. is back in the lineup and healthy. And if you had made this decision earlier, you wouldn't be 9-9. Your team would not be 9-9. Your team would still be fighting. Well, actually, your season's over. Current regular season's over, but your team would still be in the conversation for hosting a West semifinal game, or maybe even hosting the Western final. Instead, you're sitting at 500 at 9-9, 18 points, because that's how it works in the CFL. And now you're trying to figure out if Vernon Adams is going to start again this week, or this coming week in the Western semifinal, where you could be knocked out. And that season, that hope of hosting the Grey Cup on November 17th goes poof, and you could possibly lose your job. You've done a great job turning the BC Lions around. You got to the Western final last year, and actually the last 2 years you've been in the Western final. Great. You haven't gone over the hill yet, because Winnipeg's tough. Winnipeg's basically a dynasty. I would say a dynasty, but they've gone to 4 Grey Cups in a row. Where was this urgency a couple weeks ago when you were fighting for that number 1 seed? There was no urgency, and you said, all right, well, we are where we are in the playoff seeding. Let's just throw Vernon Adams in there and see what it's like, throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks. That's exactly what happened. Great, Vernon Adams Jr. 385 passing yards in his return, but you could have had much more than this leading up to where you are now. And now you're not playing this week. Gotta wait to see who you play next Saturday night, whether you're going to be in Winnipeg or you're going to be in Regina, Saskatchewan, when you could have been the conversation weeks ago and you just failed to execute because you had to stick with your guy who you're paying a whole lot of money to. And he wasn't playing to the level he was back in 2022. So my snowflake this week, even though you won this week, head coach, BC Lions, Rick Campbell.
I like it. It was definitely a great pick there, Mr. McCoffey, because the big tale of woe we've seen with the Lions, their quarterback position, and throwing Nathan Rourke out there and all the buzz, all that stuff. Somebody had to shed some light on it, and you just did. And I'm going to shed some light on something else that has been an absolute one of these to watch all year long. It has been an absolute. It's been this. All right, everyone, get ready for shenanigans.
You guys want to hear a fucking story?
Story is this. Let me tell you about a story about a team that has absolutely sucked all year long. A team that I'm looking so forward to next week having to review for the final time of this year, and that being the Calgary mother-fathering Stampeders. You have been an absolute dumpster Pelican team to watch, and I'm sorry if you can't.
Show him.
You can't handle the truth.
Put it on screen.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you can't see it, and I don't know where the dumpster Pelican button went to because it is not here right now.
Oh.
It is. I want to click the button, but I can't. The closest thing I can click to it is this.
Diabetes. Diabetes.
Don't be. Because the Calgary Stampeders have not been scared to take the.
Let me talk to you.
This team has needed to.
Stop it. Get some help.
Oh, my brother, testify. What?
This team has been absolutely terrible to watch, and we broke it down earlier in this episode. When you look at the stats that they put up, Matthew Schultz, quarterback number 17 for this team, a man who has probably been drinking too much of the Schlitz on the sideline, coming out there, putting up the numbers that he has been doing. Look at what he did in this past game, 124 passing yards with an interception, along with 7 carries for 43 yards. Congratulations on the rushing touchdown, but your team still got mollywopped by the Tiger Kitties, 42-20. A man who has been your rushing leader for the entire year, Dedrick Mills, going out there, putting up 13 carries on the day for 76 yards, was a decent amount of production on the ground, but you couldn't even make anything positive come out of that because your defense gave up 42 points. So looking at it for what it is, you need help with the defense because your defense has probably been the worst in the league of the entire CFL all this year, which is why you have put up 12 losses on the year. You needing this is a total understatement.
Stop it. Get some help.
I mean, even this man was saying this about this team if he could see this team today.
Now, that is absurd.
It's absolutely terrible to watch. I mean, cue up Charles real quick.
That's terrible.
You know, when it comes to the greatness of clicking the button,
Acknowledge me.
this production is brought to you by
Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
And watching all of these transitions was way better than you having to endure a Calgary Stampeders game from start to finish. My rant of the Snowflake of the Week, I'm talking about the entirety of this 2024 season of watching the Calgary Stampeders play from the beginning to end. They are my Snowflake pick for this week. They are my overall snowflake pick for the entire season if I had to pick a snowflake of the season, because this has been something terrible to endure if you are a fan of this team. I feel bad for you. I feel bad for Brett the Hitman Hart. I feel bad for all of you over there who support this team. But I will tell you this, as somebody who just endured a 4-13 season for the formerly known as the REDSKINS, the Commies, mainly named as the Commanders in the NFL, if you tough it out and your team makes the right decisions in the offseason, even if it has to be an ownership change, general manager, head coach, whatever the case may be, along with the staff putting up the results on the field, then you may see the type of turnaround that the team formerly known as the REDSKINS have seen in the NFL. Here in the CFL now, though, you are my pick based on the production that you put up in this past week, 20 points to 42, and the way that you did it, especially the production out of your overall team, mainly your defense, you are my choice for the snowflake of the week.
I have nothing more to add. Hell, there's snowflake of the year in my book. I mean,
Yes.
come on.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
It was terrible to watch, but we've got great things for you guys to watch if you stick around, as we're going to take it to the 2-minute warning, or 2-minute drill, in my opinion. My apologies. Wow. The Calgary Stampeders got me so jacked up that my tongue twistedness has taken me into a different realm. But here and now, let's take it to the 2-minute drill.
Total Football Talk Extra.
And here for the 2-minute drill, we're going to take a look at the upcoming week that starts tonight here in about 37 minutes. It's 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. We have the Hamilton Tiger Kitties traveling to Ottawa to take on the Red Blacks. Looking at this game and the fact that the BC Lions, who are 9-9, have their first, well, not their first, but their last bye of the season here in the last week of the season. The 9-9 team is on bye. The Hamilton Tiger Kitties traveling to Ottawa to take on the Red Blacks in the final game of the season for Hamilton. Do they get their 8th win of the season and improve to 8-10, or does Ottawa get back on track with a victory at home before next week's playoff game, Ryan?
Seeing how Ottawa has offensively been, or defensively been, just not great over the last couple of weeks, and Bo Levi Mitchell having that hot arm, over 5,000 yards passing this season. I'm willing to. And also with the way the Tiger Cats defense has been playing pretty well over the last couple of months. Ottawa needs this game to get the momentum going for the playoffs. They have to win this game, but they've underachieved over the last month and a half, 2 months, since they got off to that really hot start. On the flip side, Hamilton's been better than them. And then, in fact, in their last meeting, Hamilton went up winning them. They beat them big. So I'm going to say, just because, you know, I'm a believer. I hope Bo Levi Mitchell wins the most outstanding player of the year, the year of the award this year at the award show in a couple of weeks. I'm gonna roll the Tiger Kitties in this one. I think Tiger Kitties win this one, and Ottawa is just. I think their season's starting to sink, and it's been sinking. But I think this is this particular howitzer will put a bigger hole in that boat that they have.
It's not like the Boveralls situation, though, where it's rocking the Boveralls and they were rocking and rolling. But you have the Tiger Kitties.
Mm-hmm.
You have the Red Blacks going to 8-9-1 before their playoff game and continuing their Dumpston Pelicanery.
Yep.
I agree with your sentiments. I am going to say that they fall to 8-9-1 as well. And we see the Boverall-less Bo Levi Mitchell lead this team on a high note to end the year, as it was a rough one overall for them. But 2 games under 500 is a better way that it could have ended when you look in comparison to other teams like the Stampeders. I agree with your sentiments here. I'm going to say that the Hamilton Tiger Cats win this game on the road in Ottawa tonight at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern time to kick off the final week of the CFL. And we have 3 more games that we have to review as well.
Hey. Who's giving them the business?
Our next game tonight will be at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. The Toronto Argonauts travel into Edmonton to take on the Elks. Looking at this game right here, Ryan, we have a team in the Argonauts who's 10-7. Coming into Edmonton to take on a dumpster Pelican team for the majority of this scene, but has had some ups and downs, but has had some pretty decent ups in those 6 wins as well. looking at that for what it is. Do you think they can end their season on a high note, similar to the Hamilton Tiger Cats with their 7th win, and do this at home? Or does Toronto get another victory en route to their week next week in their game in the playoffs?
It's going to depend on what Coach Ryan Diddy wants to do with this Argonauts team. They're secured. They've secured their playoff spot. They're going to host a playoff game. And I'm looking at the depth chart right now, and it looks like they're going to sit a bunch of their starters because Dukes is in at quarterback, and McMahon is in for running back in lieu of Kadeem Carey. So we got a couple of Cameron Dukes, will be starting at quarterback. Looks like Chad Kelly's going to be the 3rd man on the roster. So it looks like Toronto's resting most of their rest the key starters to prepare for Ottawa next week in the playoffs. So with all that being said, I think partially because of that, it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's a throwaway game for Toronto. They can afford to lose the game. But for Edmonton's pride's on the line. Pride's on the line. Guys are fighting for their jobs. This is another team that could, if they keep their core together, but get things together on offense with decide what to do on quarterback, whether it be McLeod Bethel Thompson, or if he winds his way out of Edmonton, Trey Ford comes over, or you could see Vernon Adams Jr. or Nathan Rourke become an Edmonton Elk this year. So they got some decisions to make in the personnel, but a lot of guys will be fighting for next year, want to extend the team for next year. I want to see if Jerry Jackson has done enough to earn himself taking that interim title off the coach and just be permanent head coach. This is the audition to do it. So I'm going to go with it's going to be a low scoring game. It's going to be ground and pound for sure. Ground and pound, because both teams have very effective running games. It's going to be a ground and pound affair. But I'm going to go with the Elks in this one. I think they want to win in front of their home fans. They want to build some momentum for next year. I think they've done a lot of that over the last couple months. They have new ownership, and who's going to help them boost their profile in the city. So I think I'm going to take the Elks in this one.
And this is going to be the first game that I disagree with you on, and I'm going to go with the Argonauts to win this road game, help them out with their little bit of a momentum going into the playoffs, which is definitely what they need after the ups and downs that they have faced this year. It would be good to see another team that's under 500 ended on a high note, and I won't be surprised if your prediction goes your way. But for the sake of debate, I'm going to go ahead and pick the Argonauts to win this game on the road for our second Friday night game as we wrap that up for the CFL with these two games. But now let's preview the 2 Saturday games that are tomorrow. And here with that, we start with one of 2 games that the winner and how decides if somebody plays the following week or if somebody has the bye in the CFL semifinal division of this CFL playoffs. As we have the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who are on the road this week. They are 10-7 at this point in this season. Traveled to Montreal to take on the Alouettes, who have secured a first-round bye in this playoffs, who are 12-4-1. Saturday, 3:00 p.m. Eastern time. Who do you have winning this game there, Mr. McCarthy?
This is a tough decision to make. I looked at both depth charts while you were introducing this game. Everybody started on each side. Every starter it's an important game for Winnipeg because this decides the division. They win. If they win, if ever themselves a bye, they've won and they go to the playoffs they go to the Western final, earning themselves a bye. Montreal, they're just playing to get things right. Cody Fajardo starting, Austin Mack is coming back, Walter Fletcher will be back in the lineup. So I think they just want to retool for the playoffs, and it'll depend on how long they'll be in the game. Are they going to play the first half and have the starters rest again in a very important game for Winnipeg, or are they going to play all 4 quarters? So I think it's going to depend on whether they play all 4 quarters. And it's a really cool thing that what the CFL did with these two teams. They're bookending the season, so they play them. Montreal won at Winnipeg in week 1 of the season. I wound up beating them handily and this was when Winnipeg was having their growing pains, so to speak. So this is a very different team playing against Montreal. It's going to be another smash mouth game, but this time it's going to be on the defensive side of the ball. So it's going to be important for one of these teams to establish themselves. And I think Winnipeg can do that because they have the better running game. So it's going to be a very close game, but I'm going to take the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in this one.
I really like your take. I really do. There's a really good chance that will come into fruition. But for the sake of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, I'm going to say that the Alouettes win this game. And the main reason why is because you're coming off of a loss. You have not been doing well in the month of October right now at this point. With certain ways some of these games have gone. And for the momentum to be back onto your side, because it's so hard once we've been on a steep decline, even if it is regular season and you've already locked things up multiple weeks in advance, it's going to be hard for them to flip that switch, even with the week off they're going to have because of the way they set themselves up for the playoffs. So I think for them, they need this win going into the bye week. Mm-hmm. And it's huge for them in their run to the Grey Cup. That makes more of an impact than the Winnipeg Blue Bombers just getting in or having the week off. To them, to the Alouettes, what you're saying, I totally get that and support that too. But in order to have some type of declaration on each side, I feel like I have to pick this team and the Alouettes to win. They need this for their momentum, because if not, if they take this loss to a team that will be in the playoffs, regardless if they win or lose this week, just like them, it could set them up to go backwards. And the same thing for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers too. Don't want to take anything away from that, but at the same time, I feel like the Alouettes need this more to save their season, because they have been hyped as the favorite for the Grey Cup all year. But if they take multiple losses going into a bye week, I don't think that that's going to bolster well for them. That's why I have to go with them as they're my choice for who's going to win in this 2-minute drill.
Hey, who's giving them the business?
And now we have one more game to preview for Saturday. This one being a 7:00 p.m. Eastern time game. When it comes to the Calgary Stampeders, we finally are here at the end of the road where we do not have to talk about them.
To the end of. All right, I'll stop. I don't have the great dulcet tones like Mr. Johnson does. I could carry a tune, but not that far.
No, neither one you or I can come anywhere close to it. I will. That's why I click buttons. But right here and now, for this, we've gotten to that point. Next week, our review, it will be it for the 2024 season of this week. But let's get to the beginning of that. This is the preview of the review for that, and that being their road game where they are 4-12-1 going to Saskatchewan to take on the Rough Riders in the home game, the final home game for Saskatchewan of this season. The Saskatchewan team 9-7-1 are guaranteed a winning record regardless if they win or lose. They are also guaranteed a playoff spot, just like the Blue Bombers, whether they win or lose. But it's big if they win this game and the Blue Bombers lose their game, as I had just predicted in the previous game, for them to potentially have a first-round bye in this upcoming playoff run to the Grey Cup. Now, at this point in your prediction, you picked the Blue Bombers to win, okay? Mm-hmm. So it's not that much of a big deal if the Rough Riders win, if the Blue Bombers win, because it's already locked up if the Blue Bombers win for the first round bye. So at this point in your prediction, I'll let you carry that into your pick for here. But who wins this game regardless? Are you going to go with the Saskatchewan Rough Riders based on who they're playing? Or are you going to go with the Calgary Stampeders ending their season on a decent note?
Yeah, I'm going Saskatchewan.
Okay.
I'm looking at the depth chart right now. They're going to play all starters are playing. The only question marks here are AJ Willett. He's a game time decision. He's been practicing the last couple of weeks, but they had got the bye week to get healthy, so he's a game time decision. So is Keyshawn Johnson. Give him the damn ball. Samuel Emilus, he's a game time decision. Roland Milligan Jr. is a game time decision. So, regardless of whether those guys play or not, this is a team that is building up momentum going into the playoffs. And yeah, the bye week is the bye week. It's just an extra week of rest, and it just happens to be at the right time because they were rolling into the bye week with a 4-game winning streak. That game against Calgary in Calgary, where they went on a bye week and they have been coming off of that losing streak, that got the momentum going. And I think, yeah, they'll be watching the scoreboard from 1 o'clock Central or 1 o'clock. I forgot if they're a Mountain or Central. I forgot, but whatever time they're playing, they're gonna be watching that scoreboard when Montreal is playing Winnipeg, because they're gonna be paying attention to see if if Winnipeg loses. Because Winnipeg loses and they win, they earn themselves a bye, which will be even better for this team because this team's coming in kind of healing up. So, but even if they don't put in the starters that they need to put in, like Willett, Emilus, Johnson, Milligan, they're still going to roll. I think they'll still roll over this Calgary Stampeders team. It's not going to matter whether first place is on the line or not. I think they just want to get momentum going into the playoffs for the next week. So I'm thinking Saskatchewan's going to be a runaway.
And based on the hype that I laid down before going into this pick, I'm going to agree with you. Saskatchewan, Rough Riders fans, get ready for another win. Get ready for a fun playoff run, in my opinion. And I hope we get to continue to talk about them in the weeks to come. But now with that being said, we have taken from the 2-minute drill to the post game.
Total Football Talk Extra.
As long as it's one. It's great. I love it. I hope it actually is recording. Listening to it.
And here with the post game, we just reviewed the week that will be. It starts off tonight with these 2 games, and the 2 games that are tomorrow here in the CFL. Ryan, when it comes to your final thoughts going into this final week of the CFL, what's your overall take on everything going into this end of the 2024 regular season?
So I warned Drew ahead of time in our messenger. I said, Drew, I gonna have a hot take coming in for post game for closing thoughts this week for the CFL. It's not gonna involve the NFL. I'm kind of, we'll talk about that. By the way, no credentials required tonight, 8:30. Come join us for happy hour. It's gonna be a fun time. Ding. But my post game thoughts has to involve the scheduling. And I know the CFL's trying to do their thing with, I wouldn't say they're competing with the NFL. I know they're trying to be kind of they're trying to establish themselves, especially in the 21st century, as a league to go to, as an alternative to the NFL. And I enjoy the CFL. I've enjoyed the CFL since my late teens, early 20s. Been following this league for quite a while. But looking at the chaos we've had this year, coming into the final week of the season, there has to be some sort of thing where 2 teams vying for playoff positioning, they should be playing at the same time. And I come back to these 2 Saturday games between Winnipeg and Montreal, Calgary at Saskatchewan. You have Winnipeg, Montreal first, and then Calgary, Saskatchewan right after. But by the time Winnipeg, Montreal wraps up, it may not matter, which kind of sucks because you got 2 teams vying for the first overall seed in a division, and in one of the most chaotic seasons I've ever witnessed personally. This year has been absolute madness, and I'm here for it. I'm here for it, CFL. I'm an American fan paying attention to your game. Yeah, you got to make a way for this scheduling to be flexible. I mean, I think they need to install some scheduling, flexible scheduling like the NFL does. Now, I understand there's 32 teams in the NFL. There's only 9 teams in the CFL. Let's try to get ourselves a 10th CFL. Come on, let's get on this. Let's get on this. It's 21st century. It's 20. It's 20. We're in the 2020s, for God's sake. Can't get yourself a 10th team. But I think the scoreboard watching would be an absolute thrill to watch, especially if they put these 2 games on Saturday head to head against each other. And you can do that. You've got an exclusive contract with TSN, with Bell Media and CTV in Canada. You mean you can't tell me you can't put 2 games on at the same time on 2 of the TSN stations up there? You can't put one on TSN, one of the TSN stations, and one on CTV? Can't put 2 on CFL Plus for the United States and international audience to see?
Facts.
This would have been the most chaotic ending to a season if you had put those 2 Saturday games against each other, because it's kind of akin to decision day in Major League Soccer, in English Premier League Soccer, where every team is playing, and not only is the Premier League, the championship on the line, but also relegations on the line. And it's in a similar situation here where you have 2 teams playing for first place in the Western Division. And instead, it could be a meaningless game at 7:00 Eastern time when Saskatchewan plays Calgary. Like CFL, we got to think this through. We got to allow ourselves to have some flexible scheduling where we have, especially in chaotic years like this one, where every game, every point is going to matter up until week 21. So I just think if it's next year, if I was commissioner of the CFL, if Randy Ambrosi, commissioner of the CFL, is listening, let's get some flexible scheduling on the line here. And I know some stadiums are shared resources, Montreal, Calgary, like pretty much, with the exception of Saskatchewan, Winnipeg, and Hamilton, and BC. You know, every team has to share their resources. But I think we could work around that and have a cooperation with whoever they're sharing with to make sure that this flexible scheduling, this head-to-head matchups, the scoreboard watching, the madness that is decision day can apply to the CFL and as well as the NFL. Because remember, the NFL, every team plays in week 18 on the same day. No Monday night games. I think, except, or maybe but there's a Sunday night game. But it usually is the decider for the last playoff spot. We need something like that in the CFL. It just makes it so much more fun.
I agree with you because, I mean, yeah, we don't see teams. There's no buys for teams in the NFL throughout the last few weeks because of how critical that time is for determining playoff, teams and seeding and so on and so forth. So, yes, I'm in total agreement with you with everything you just said. That was definitely a great hot take to end the show there, Mr. McCarthy. Definitely great. And I can't top that. Not today's episode. And there's not much, that we have left to say because we've laid it all out there for how this season has been. We are now at the final part of it. We've now just given our final preview of a regular season week for the CFL. It's definitely been a pretty cool transition. This is episode 8. The Total Football Talk Extra. Through this episode, we now have 68 episodes between Total Football Talk and Total Football Talk Extra through this week. It's definitely been a fun project between the two. The fact that, once the NFL season was over, Cole and I were able to keep the show going with covering the UFL. And then after that, as that was winding down, we got the CFL that's kicking off. So to have that and then to be able to pay homage or whoever wants to say it, to the fact that was what kept Total Football Talk going, with taking a spinoff and making Total Football Talk Extra, just goes to show we've still had some great content within the past 8 weeks. And a huge shout out to Ryan for being able to be part of 7 of those weeks. And now the fact that we will be able to talk about playoffs and we will know 1,000% who's going to be where between the Rough Riders and the Blue Bombers after this week. looking forward to covering that at the start of next week's program. We also have a comment from Mickey who says, "Where's Ike?" Well, I don't know. Haven't seen Ike in a couple weeks. You know, he might be back. Who knows? Who knows where Ike is? But when it comes to that, basically just wanted to take this time, since I couldn't top what Ryan was saying in his take, to thank all of you who've been tuning in, whether it's been live or in the replay. And I do have one more show that's going to be here tonight. The Commanders Gridiron Report will be in about 20 minutes. I'm going to knock that out before I go to work. Ding! Yes. As I have to go into work, as I'm on call to help out for a few hours. Well, probably more than a few hours tonight. But after that, I'll be on a vacation for almost a week and a half, for a little over a week. And I got to get some things done. But most importantly, since it is football related, and I'll talk more about it in the upcoming broadcast of CGR, I'm going to see them live this Sunday. I've also got the jersey they'll be wearing, the black jersey that just came in the mail the other day. I'll be rocking their uniform while they are rocking said uniform, and it is a Terry McLaurin jersey, so I am hyped. Going with my dude Paul Kelly, so he'll be checking out the show here in a little bit. But other than that, everyone, we now have to get back to the main thing that we say, as we do at the end of every single, episode. Hope you all enjoyed it, for one, as I was hiccuping my way through the end of it. But, you know, like Cole says, in life, like a tackle, keep your head up. Keep going until the whistle blows. Can't say it as great as he does. He's a great storyteller, but you get the message. And as always, from Mr. Ryan McCarthy to my side, to me, stay safe out here in these motherfathering streets.